What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Federico Perez and Ralph Hanna. And guys, I am so happy that we're actually doing this episode because 2 weeks ago we started our World Cup adventure, and obviously we're going to review the group stage, and we can safely say, not officially, we still gotta wait officially, gotta wait for some numbers and all that kind of jazz. But Paraguay have done it. Paraguay have qualified to the next round of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. They were able to get out of the group stage, a tricky group with the United States, Turkey, and Australia. We will be recapping all that we saw from that, what we liked, what we didn't like, what Alfaro had to say, and everything else that just happened in 2 weeks. It flew by, man. It flew way fast. And obviously, I hope everyone that is listening has also been enjoying the World Cup. It's been great so far. Obviously, not just Paraguay, but all of us are fans of soccer, football, whatever you want to call it. So we've been enjoying this tournament as it is. Obviously seeing Paraguay in the big stage is such a huge event, and certainly gets the attention of the entire world, either for good or for bad. We'll talk about all of that in a sec. But yeah, dude, I'm so glad that we're able to do this. We're talking just hours after the 0-0 draw against Australia that was able to basically secure their spot into the next round. But let me go to someone first with that Paraguay flag, with that Albi Roja I see. We haven't seen the Albi Roja on a World Cup pitch until last night. Federico Perez, man, how are you? I have to ask, how has this 2 weeks been for you? Just I'd imagine it's been a roller coaster of emotions, and I hope you've been enjoying the tournament as well. Like let's also call it as it is as well.
I have, Roberto. Hi to you. Hi, Ralph. Hi to everyone listening to Guarani Vision. Great to be back for another episode. Yeah, it's been a couple of days off, guys, but it's the World Cup, right? I mean, we want to watch as much games as possible. And obviously, just like many of the people that listen to us, we're fans of football, so we've been enjoying what has to do with the Albirroja games, been partying, been hanging out with friends, having a good time, because that's what the World Cup is really about, especially when in our cases, we haven't been working. I didn't go to the US, so I've been just spending here my time in Paraguay with the Paraguayan fans, with people from other countries also, because Paraguay has gotten a lot of attention lately due to the fact that they're back in the World Cup after 16 years. Alfaro mentioned that several times. And I'm really happy. I'm happy that we went through. So today, after, that final group stage game was over, I was thinking to myself, okay, we went through. Okay, guys, the first mission is accomplished. I mean, then we got to talk about how it happened, all the little details, all the little mistakes along the way, the stressful trip that it's been so far for me, particularly. I still haven't enjoyed that much of the World Cup if we're going to talk about the Albirroja, but yeah, there are a lot of exciting teams. There's really good football going around. There are very bad teams also that are probably going to leave the World Cup real soon, but the Albirroja is still in there, and we got at least one more game.
We do have at least one more game, and Ralph, obviously, you and I have been able to enjoy it here. We haven't been able to attend a game yet. We still have a few games to be able to achieve that. But I do have to ask you, though, because obviously you've been to World Cups and you've seen obviously what it's like to attend. And being now in the country of, obviously you're grateful enough that you're in a host city, like right by Houston. But how have you been enjoying it? I guess I'll ask you that before we get into the Paraguay detail. But how have you been enjoying the World Cup and just, I guess, everyone congregating and everything that you've been seeing on the internet as well?
Yeah, well, firstly, hi to everybody watching, listening. Good to be back to do this show, and it's been exciting, right? We've had the most goals ever in a World Cup, which we knew that record was going to fall because of the amount of the games. But the expanded tournament, I think, has given us some fun as well. I mean, it was Curacao scored that first goal. That was here in Houston. They scored that first goal at the World Cup, and we're tying Germany for a moment. You had the Cabo Verde performance from the goalkeeper against Spain, and then they surprised Uruguay. So you're seeing like some fun moments during the tournaments as you'd expect. Social media is leading a lot of the content, I think, with Times Square is seems to get taken over by different people, like different countries each week, and then you have Scotland have had their fun in Boston, down in Miami. Here in Houston, it's been exciting. I mean, I've been surprised how many locals who aren't really into football have gone to games and gone down to the fan fest just because they want to see what it's like and they want to experience. Actually, other people coming into Houston is Funnily enough, reading a stat today, I think it's the city that has the most bookings in hotels year on year, like higher. Because let's be honest, Houston in the summer is not somewhere people usually want to come to. It's very hot. Our big season is rodeo, which was earlier in the year. So to have more people in the city is actually kind of fun and a bit different. So it's been a lot of fun so far, and yeah, definitely less stressful watching the other teams than watching Paraguay.
Absolutely. And Fede, I mean, at least from an outsider's point of view, I think that was, I'll ask you this before we get on to the actual chat of Paraguay, but going into this World Cup, there was a lot of like pressure on the state as the host, to really them, Canada and Mexico, to really put off a good show. I think there was obviously fears of like, oh, people won't show up because of the tickets, of political issues, which is still obviously there. We're not gonna talk about that, but just everything that's just been surrounding it, everyone felt like, oh, this is probably gonna fail because let's also be real, the United States and soccer does not come hand to hand. It's not the big sport of the country. But that being said, I'm sure you've seen everything of the fans just enjoying themselves and obviously the huge crowds, the color, just everything that's been going on. I don't know if it surprised you. I don't know if it's something that you expected, at least now that we're basically 60 games in, basically 2 weeks in the tournament. But, from an outsider's point of view, and obviously you live in the States, you know what it's like to to know what the Americans are like. But what has been your reaction just seeing everything, and of course even the Paraguayans showing up? Let's be real, that's also something that we've also kind of feared as well, that maybe not a lot of people were going to show up. I think last night against Australia there were 15,000 Paraguayans, which is, if you think about it, I think there's like 30,000 in the entire country, Paraguayan Americans. So if half of the if half of the Paraguayans have went to that stadium over there in Santa Clara, that's huge. But besides that, I mean, how have you enjoyed the World Cup? Because I've enjoyed it. I'm sure Ralph, you definitely enjoyed it. You definitely said, yeah, there you go. But how have you just been enjoying everything from all the perspective?
No, but what you mentioned there, Roberto, is probably the biggest surprise for me. I mean, the amount of Paraguayans we saw at all three games. That first of all, I want to highlight that because I wasn't expecting that, especially in this last game. I mean, so many people. At a certain point, I was looking and I was thinking to myself, why are the Australians wearing their jersey? I know it was our fans in the stands, so it really it was beautiful to see that in California, so far away. And overall, I would give, the US especially an A plus, guys. I mean, besides all the problems that they're having with the organization, with certain countries, with the security and just and everything, the ticket prices, which I'm totally not on board with. I don't know how much the final is gonna be worth
A
if people
lot,
have been
a lot.
if
I'll
people
say
have
that
been
though.
playing thousands of dollars during the group stage. It just sounds crazy to me. But I mean, looking at it from outside, it just looks like a beautiful show, guys. I mean, I think the US, they've always done this in NBA. They've done it in hockey. They've always known how to do showtime. They always know how to put up a show for different sports. And I wasn't expecting anything less, but it's great to see that Americans did really well also in their group. So this puts them on board with their team. This puts them on board with football. It's called football, guys, not soccer. And I lived there. I can say at a certain point in my life, I was an amateur soccer player in the United States, and I know that people, it wasn't their first option ever. I mean, soccer, it just came around in certain places in the United States only in the summer, right? And it was just, even back then, I would say that it was more sports for girls than it was for men. And nowadays, no, the MLS has grown so much. People are drawn into, I believe, football because of the amount of players that they also follow in the champions and everything. So I think football has grown. You guys live there now, but I have that reference from when I lived there, and also the '94 World Cup. This feels totally different, guys. I mean, I know a lot of time has gone by, but it's still in the United States, it's not the number one sport, but we're seeing tremendous shows and a lot of people in the stands. I was not expecting. We talked about it before the World Cup. Is every game gonna have stadiums that are going to be packed? Are we going to have enough people in the stands? And luckily we did, and I was surprised by it.
Average attendance, but we'll finish this off, Ralph, with your last comment. Average attendance of over 64,000 right now across the 60 games so far, and it already broke the record, which was obviously going to be expected, of nearly 4 million people going to the games. 177 goals already scored, so nearly 3 goals a game. I mean, it's been very entertaining, I would say. And like you even said, Ralph, like, we've seen a lot of stories as well. I think when you have a combination of all of that, I think I'm not expecting this to be the greatest World Cup ever. Who knows? That might be a different story. But that being said, I think from what we've seen, and I think Fede is right. I also think it's been stellar, A+ from them as well. If you want to, I know you can be a bit harsh sometimes with the States and how their organization, how they feel about football or soccer, but I'm sure you have to agree with us in saying it's been good so far. Honestly, it's been really great.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and I mean, there were some games at the beginning that, let's be honest, I don't know if you guys were watching on TV, but you couldn't feel the atmosphere coming through. But more recently, like for example, Ecuador in that game against Germany, so many Ecuador fans there, that makes it fun. We just talked about Paraguay, Norway, Scotland when they've traveled. So when you get a lot of the fan base showing up, which we weren't sure was going to happen, then you get the atmosphere on top. So it's not just a full stadium, it's actually a stadium with atmosphere. And yeah, we've been getting some good games and some good fun. The only thing is when they just need to end those hydration breaks, right? Because that
I don't.
that is killing it a bit, the atmosphere, because they put on music in the background.
They
So
do. And
you're
it's
like,
sponsored too. I think it's like Powerade or something like
oh
that.
my gosh. Okay. Because I always feel like that's when you got like 3 minutes of the commentators trying to like fill the space because there's only so much they can do. They haven't done the cool thing they do in Copa Libertadores, right? Where they get in among the microphone. That would have been fun if you could hear the coaches talking. So they didn't manage that. So and then they put the background music on, so you're a bit like, that takes you off the rhythm. But other than that, it's been very entertaining. It's been good fun, and the crowds have been full. Like even I think I want to say like a month before the World Cup, they announced they'd sold 1 million tickets. And so I was doing the calculation, like, that's not a lot of tickets. And then last night they said 3.6 million. So, I mean, there's been a huge pickup at the last minute that people did get tickets and they were happy to like pay the prices. But that's made for a good show because you want to watch the games with like the full stadiums. Otherwise, I think it was the Club World Cup when there were quite a few games where there weren't many like full stadiums, and you just don't get the atmosphere that you're hoping for.
It's been quite. I guess they learned their lesson basically. But the last thing before we actually go into the barrel, let's talk about the soccer, the football. Do you like the hydration breaks?
I don't like a single idea that they throw lately into football and hydration break or ad break, commercial break, whatever you want to call it. No, I don't like it, Roberto. Hopefully they go back to how it was, but they're not going back. They're making more and more money. The machine's making more and more money, and that's what they want. Everything is calculated to make them more money.
Yes, and it also goes through results, but that's a whole different story. Anyway, let's talk about what we saw because obviously it's been a roller coaster of 2 weeks for Paraguay on all fronts. Obviously, we saw them play against the co-host, the United States, against Turkey, and then against Australia, and we saw three different results in all those games. The first game against the co-host, big event, huge event over there in Inglewood. There were celebrities coming out. I think I saw from all types: Paris Hilton, Steven Spielberg, Bill Gates, everyone. Fede, it's like you can even think to yourself, they're there to watch Paraguay. Can you think about that? It's crazy. But obviously the result did not go the way that Paraguay wanted. They lost 4-1 on the day. It started really badly for them with Bobadilla getting the own goal, and then obviously the US just scoring. Balogun had a really great game, scoring twice, once in the 31st minute, and then just before halftime, Mauricio came in as the substitute, scored the first Paraguay goal at the World Cup in 16 years in the 73rd minute before Gio Reyna scored again in stoppage time. Likes to score against Paraguay to get 4-1. It added pressure to the game against, obviously, Turkey, and that obviously saw some changes. And initially, what we saw in that lineup, we saw Davian Bobadilla and Antonio Sanabria start up. They were both changed up. It was Matias Galarza that went in and Isidro Pita. So we saw a game and we saw one that had to be a must win, and it went perfectly as planned. The guy that came in was Matias Galarza and Isidro Pita. Matias Galarza getting the goal, 71 seconds in that goal. Sorry, 64 seconds actually was a really nice left-footed shot right outside the penalty area. And then it was just a siege of the defense. And then obviously the big talking point, I think, from Paraguay in this entire group stage was this when Miguel Almirón covered his mouth, and with that, it allowed him to get sent off. I'm sure everyone's has seen the after review. Paraguay number 10 covered his mouth. Decision is red card decision from Ivan Barton, the referee. That's kind of been making memes in all fronts. That made him get suspended, but Paraguay were able to get the win, which put them in a really good spot against Australia last night, which we saw really a sluggish game, defensive standpoint. No one really stood out, but ultimately it was enough because obviously with Australia winning their game against Turkey and then obviously them losing to the States, basically the same position as we were in, a point was going to be enough for them to qualify. And obviously they did. They only got it through the goal difference because of Paraguay's lack of goal of them scoring of the US scoring against them more times than Australia. But they're basically through. I mean, I put this all through. Ralph, I'll go to you first on this one. How have you just assessed everything from Paraguay in this group stage and the three games that we've seen? Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously, so much of the last two games is conditioned by the first game, and honestly, the first game was one of the most well, not one of the most disappointing games because I remember the Copa America, but it was like rewatching Copa America 24 when Paraguay exited with no points. What was really concerning about the game against US was in the friendly, they didn't find a way to play through the press, and so in this game, they also didn't find it. They they didn't have a plan to deal with Pulisic, which to me was crazy. Like, putting Juan Cáceres up against Pulisic, fine, but then you need the support like you did when he was up against Vinicius. Didn't find that. And then the biggest thing of that whole game was the Gio Reyna goal. How they allowed 26 passes or whatever it was. No one put pressure on him. And it was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is the World Cup. Do you not know that third place goal difference is going to be key, like because of the other third place teams, because they could have finished on 3 points, right? And so goal difference is a factor there. It's not just head to head. And it was like, well, this is just kind of embarrassing, to be honest. You talked about all the stars that were there, right? And then Paraguay became a bit like, oh, they're a nice team to show up. They're like, oh, it was like they're Curacao and Cabo Verde with all due respect. And it was kind of like, wait, this isn't what we thought we're here for. Turkey is a great response to that, which it had to be, right? If they put in another lackluster performance or a lack of aggression or intensity against Turkey, then it would have been like, what's going on? Something's gone wrong. They responded great, and then you're like, okay, Alfaro, we trust you again. He got into it, and of course you talked about the red card, and so that again conditions the result. I mean. Paraguay couldn't really go out and attack much, being it wouldn't make sense if you're 1-0 up down to 10 men. And then we come to the last game, and again, it's conditioned by the fact that a tie will get you through. And it really reminded me, I don't know about you guys, of the Ecuador game to qualify for the World Cup, which was also a 0-0 draw. And it was also two teams that didn't need to win facing each other, and two teams that aren't really maybe known for attacking play. I mean, for Australia, for as much as they scored twice against Turkey in that game, they were very defensive and playing on the counter attack. They're a very physical team, and we saw that last night. What was really interesting is imagine if you'd switched the referees and you had Turpin in the game against Turkey and then you had Barton last night, it could have been crazy because you probably wouldn't have got the red card, honestly, for Almiron. But also last night, there could have been like so many yellow cards because Turpin just let that game like flow and run so much. It's almost impossible for Diego Gomez to get booked, which he managed to do, and he's now suspended for the next match because he was letting so much go. It was very interesting, and that obviously suited Australia a bit more. I mean, poor Andres Cubas, he's small as it is, right? And he was like between these two huge guys in Connor Metcalf and Jackson Irvine, and I think he found that difficult anyway with the setup we have with the five at the back and for Cubas to try and get anywhere in midfield was very difficult with those two. But yeah, going back to the whole thing is like it's been a very pragmatic group stage, which is kind of what we expected from Alfaro, but a lot of it's conditioned by that first game, and I think that gave like an air of negativity we weren't expecting. And I don't think Paraguay, even by qualifying, because of the way they're qualifying is bare bones third place, scoring one long range goal by Galarza, basically. That it's not given people as much hope as maybe you would have expected from the beginning. So it's been what it's been. But we kind of expected the pragmatic approach, but I think just that first game has left a lot of question marks, and now going into what's probably going to be Germany, I think there's still a lot of question marks about the team.
I had tremendous expectations with this team, guys, going into the World Cup. We did our preview, and I thought we could have gone for that first spot, but we got that reality check real quick in this World Cup against the US. And yeah, at a certain point, I felt like I was let down, especially in that first match from the players, from the coach, because he didn't fix it. You could see it right away. I don't know about you guys, but I was 15 minutes in the game and I was thinking to myself, okay, is the coach going to do anything about this? Because we're going to get stomped on. And there's two more games still to play. So, like Raf said, I mean, try to not at least get through 2, 3 goals on you. Let's try to get out of here alive. And no, it ended up being really ugly that first game, and then we had to pick it up against Turkey. But for me, that first game, I put it all on Gustavo Alfaro, guys. I mean, the way that he set up the team, it's not what I expected. It's not what I wanted to see, and I was clearly thinking that this team can eventually pick it up. I Because we did it before in the qualifiers. We showed that level and we showed that grit, right? I mean, even when things are tough, this team has shown up. And and they did, thankfully, against Turkey. They were that fighting team again. They erased what happened against the US. They used that as motivation, I would even say. And heading into that third game, we had opportunities and we didn't make the best of those opportunities. Just like Ralph said, I believe both teams uh, didn't want to attack each other. They didn't want to beat each other. I had that feeling before the game was even played, but unfortunately, the stars haven't showed up yet for this team. I mean, we had moments of Julio and Ciso. We've had, I don't know, moments of our attackers, but I mean, so far it's been Mauricio and Galarza that have scored for this team. Those were not the people that I was expecting to score the first goals of Paraguay in the World Cup. So definitely going into this tournament, we are still talking about the same issues, right? I mean, yeah, he made up his mind about the goalkeeper, but I remember Ralph talking constantly about the center forward and what's going on with Tony, who's going to play there. And then when we saw four forwards, we were thinking to ourselves, okay, we got enough. We got we got options. And then he ends up playing with every single game a different center forward. So he definitely had his doubts about that position. And another thing to highlight, guys, I mean, in all three games, we barely had the ball. And that was something that going into this tournament, we knew that it was going to happen. So why didn't they work on that? Why wasn't Mauricio already installed in that midfield in that first game, right? Why didn't he play as much as people think that he should have played? Because he's the only one, according to our coach, that can handle the ball, that can make the team play. And when the World Cup showed up, he's the one that scored that first goal. So I was expecting for Mauricio, to pick up this team and to become, during the World Cup, it happens during the World Cup. There are players that just don't get up to their level, players that are coming off a season with a lot of games. And in the World Cup, during the games, you end up realizing that, no, maybe this guy needs to start. Maybe this guy is in a better level right now. And Mauricio was one of those names. And he wasn't the only one. The center forward, it happened also. Tony Sanabria was not up to it. That's why he didn't play the second or third game as a starter. And so definitely going into this tournament, guys, I mean, there was a lot of doubts and the coach just didn't fix it at the right time. So thankfully, right now we're talking about Paraguay went through. Paraguay got the result against Turkey, and we're not talking about Almiron's mistake almost cost us the World Cup. It could have happened in that second game, right? I mean, that red card could have cost us the World Cup.
It definitely could have, man. I think it also goes into the factor in Ralph, going on this one that this could have gone horribly wrong. It could have gone to a point where they needed to win against Australia. That wasn't a certain. Obviously, this sort of safeguard of what the tournament is. And yes, you can have your critics about basically it's rewarding mediocrity. with teams that are just with basically 3 or 4 points you're going to go through. That being said, this is just the format that we have to get, and that also kind of affected us in the way that we even qualified for the World Cup, that we were the last spot in CONMEBOL qualifying to do it. So it has also opened a sort of debate about how we're just being conformed with, just what we have in front of them, and that we're just sticking to what's it called? Being comfortable with what we're able to do and doing the bare minimum. But yeah, I mean, I think my first impression from everything that I've seen from this has been just, like you said, I think definitely pragmatic. I think, like you said, the first game against the States kind of really put us in a situation where, it's unfortunate, but I think that is the reality, that they needed to be a bit more what's it called? They had to be a bit more different in the way that they did. If they had gone into that USA game, maybe a lot, maybe a 1 goal loss or a draw or whatever, and it would have been different heading into the Turkey game and of course in the Australia game. But I think that was just the reality of just the circumstances that the team was not able to do. Obviously, the Admiral red card as well had to be a big factor. I'm sure now that the Diego Gomez suspension is another one. So it kind of feels like when everything is supposed to go right, there's still something that holds us back from trying to reach our main potential.
Yeah, and so it's a lot of questions for Alfaro when you talk about some of it is forced changes like the Almiron and now Gomez. But then we had some other interesting things going back to that first game, like Julio and Ciso playing the full 90 minutes when we weren't sure if he was going to be fully fit, right? And so it was almost a surprise to see him and he didn't have a good game against the US. He's been better in the last two, like in flashes, we've seen him. But there was that immediate question about did Alfaro risk Encisa too early, for example, against US? And there was this thing of he kind of tried to fit his team around Encisa by putting Almiron on the left and Gomez on the right, which he hadn't done in qualifiers mostly. He'd mostly done the other way. And so he didn't have Almiron tracking Robinson and then doubling up on Pulisic, and that was eventually a huge mistake. Now, like you were saying, I mean, he couldn't use Almiron he put Almiron back on the right against Turkey, and then now he couldn't use him. He's gonna have to decide what to do against Germany, where he will have Almiron back, and he's definitely gonna play. I would be very surprised if he doesn't. But then he doesn't have Diego Gomez, and that really is your most versatile player you have on the whole team. So now he has to decide, to Fede's point, like, is now the time for Mauricio against Germany, against the team that will, of course, have more of the ball, but is some of my security in having some possession, which we saw against Australia, right? Paraguay improved a lot in the second half when Mauricio came on, just because they managed to have a bit more of the ball, a bit higher up the pitch, and it wasn't that kind of walking the tightrope that we saw in the first half when they were, when they were so defensive. So he's got that question, but then does Alfaro go to this very negative stance, which we saw in the press conference? So that's kind of something I wanted to touch on was in the press conference after Australia, he was almost kind of very defensive, which we haven't really seen, but he was almost kind of like, I think I'm seeing Paraguay differently to how you guys are seeing it. I'm seeing us as the lowest ranked team in the group, and we managed to get through, and we're not any world beaters. Like that was the impression he gave. That's not exactly what he said. Whereas Paraguay fans, maybe you're seeing them as, a team that should be in the quarterfinals like 2010. And there might be a disparity. And he said, you guys can have your opinion, but I picked the team. And so, I mean, that's maybe he's setting himself up for Monday that he will play back five again, which could happen. But ultimately, yeah, he's had some questions thrown at him, Alfaro, which he didn't get in the qualifiers, or if he did get in the qualifiers, he always responded in the game. So when Paraguay went 2-0 down to Colombia after 13 minutes in Barranquilla or Bogota, I can't remember where they played in the end, but away, they responded at halftime, right? Against the US, they couldn't do that. In fact, they conceded that third goal just before halftime. And then that meant he had a week of pressure before Turkey. We haven't really touched on that, but whoa, the media went crazy during that week after US and before Turkey. Like everything's wrong. The players are spending too much time doing selfies, like with their families. Like everything was. I don't think he'd felt that pressure before Alfaro. And now, having qualified, he also didn't get maybe the adulation he was hoping for, which he's got previously for qualifying to the World Cup. He didn't get it for getting through the group. There were still a lot of questions like, why did you play so defensively? Why are you scared of Australia? Why did you play a back five? And he was kind of like, whoa, you know, maybe you are seeing the team much better than I'm seeing it, which is concerning. But then maybe it's the only way you're going to beat Germany. If we're brutally honest, we're probably not going to beat them going toe to toe, right?
Fede, how have you been assessing Alfaro in just everything in the last 2 weeks? Because, this time last year, we, kind of romanticized of him what and saying and all these quotes, and it's been a complete 180. I get it, whole different circumstance, and sometimes we do have to be a realist. I mean, we're talking about the state of Paraguayan soccer is a whole different story, but you have to give him a point in some sense, I think, for what he said. I mean, look at how they were able to do it to qualify, just like that.
Yeah, but it wasn't the speech during the qualifiers, right? I mean, we never heard him talk about the downside of this team or the problems that we had in the local league and those kind of things. Why use the World Cup stage and, when all the cameras of the world are around you to talk about these issues and to put your players down like that? I mean, I think he's been trying to, just defend himself. I mean, I think he's just been trying to stand his own ground and think about more about himself and the team that he's managing, and not so much about feeding these guys right now like he did during the qualifiers, trying to pick up their spirit. I mean, he probably does that in the locker room, but when he stands in front of the mics and he talks in the press conference, he's really going harsh on our team, our players, that we don't have enough. I mean, I heard that right before he went to the World Cup, when he already had called the 26 players up, and that was really weird to me because those were terms that he was using before. He wasn't being that harsh on our players. I mean, we know that the potential is there. I mean, we already went to a quarterfinals without him. So, I mean, Paraguay has competed before in the World Cup. Yeah, it's been 16 years. You just got to mention that once. You don't got to mention that in every single conference you do. You don't have to talk about the problems that you have every single conference. And I mean, he just played Australia and he was still talking about the Turkey game. I mean, that was kind of weird for me. I mean, talk about how you're going to beat Australia, how you're going to beat Germany now. Talk about the next game. Don't tell me what happened 2 weeks ago. Look forward and don't talk to me about 2030, 2034. You're probably not going to be there. Don't tell me what Paraguay needs to do to be better in football. Tell us what you need to do to make this team play better and to make this team a World Cup. I don't know. At least get a couple more games. I mean, I know he thinks, and he's been pretty open about it. He doesn't think he has a world champion team right now, but he needs to build that team, right? I mean, it's his job after all, right? He is the coach of this team, so it's been kind of weird for me. Yeah, just like Ralph mentioned. I mean, those were not the messages that I was expecting. And I'm sure in the locker room, he's going to have to explain these things to the players. And hopefully that doesn't affect us heading into this next game. That now we're going to have to play against one of the strongest teams in the World Cup because we were in third place. And if it wasn't for those lucky third place teams, we wouldn't have made it through, guys.
Ralph, are we being a bit too harsh on Paraguay, or is Alfaro right in your opinion, or do you feel as if though maybe we need to rate them a bit more?
Yeah, I mean, historically, he has a point that Paraguay has only ever won once at a World Cup. Like they've never won two games at a World Cup, and so, I mean, as much as we got to the quarterfinals, it was never by winning outright, and we've never won a knockout game so outright, right? It was only through penalties, and so now we come again to Germany. So in a way, even if they lose to Germany 1-0, he can kind of say, "Hey, look, I've done as good as you could expect or as we've seen historically." So I think maybe that's slightly on his side, but it just seems strange coming from somebody that was always with that positive mentality through qualifiers. For sure, Paraguay were often quite defensive or cautious in games, but very often we scored two goals, right? And very often we had at least two draws that we had against Colombia and Bolivia. We turned it around against Argentina. We turned it around against Venezuela. So, I mean, it does seem strange that all of a sudden and we're able to do that in just what a year ago. And now there's all this doubt about, oh, maybe, Australia are too good for us. So I think that's where maybe some of the disconnect is. It's true that okay, Paraguay is not going to go like toe to toe with Germany and outpass them, or of course, right? No one's expecting that. But it was just I think people just wanted to see a bit more of that kind of fighting spirit, right? And show some of that positivity that publicly that I'm sure he's doing now. I mean, he's not telling the players they're going to lose. He's telling the players that they're capable of pulling this off. And one thing we have seen throughout this tournament, which is really interesting that I picked up on, is a lot of teams have local league players, like from smaller leagues, doing very well. Paraguay, apart from I think Gustavo Velasquez, who's played, they're still using players that are playing abroad and including top five leagues. So I don't think we can also claim that, oh, modern football and the disparities and all that kind of thing, because we're actually seeing that you're having, people from smaller leagues are managing to perform for their country. So yeah, I think hopefully we get a bit more positivity before the game in Boston when at Alfaro's next press conference, which I guess will be on Sunday, right? So that will be the next time we hear him speak.
So obviously we had to talk about Alfaro, and now it's time to talk about what the players have been impressing you and have not been impressing you. I think I could start off the conversation and say Julio Enciso, besides the game in Australia, was really good. I think he's had a really great World Cup so far. It's hard to pick out single players because it's always been a collective sort of team, but I think Enciso is really, I think he's leading a lot of stats at the minute, from dribbles won, from obviously being that sort of dangerous players. Obviously, the two assists. He's the assist leader at the minute for Paraguay. He got the assist for the goal again for the Mauricio goal and the Galarza goal. So he's been the best player. I gotta be honest, guys. I've been really disappointed by Diego Gomez. I think he's been one of the more underwhelming players in this entire Paraguay World Cup. I think he's not been the player that we expected him to be, especially coming off a really good season with Brighton. I think, players that I've enjoyed has been Andres Cubas. I've really enjoyed what he's been able to do, kind of, really reinforcing himself as one of the better players on this team as he should have. And I guess the other one is the strikers. Again, the problem continues with the strikers. Of the four that we've already used, Pita, Sanabria, Arce, and I'm missing the other one. Yeah, Arce, Pita, Sanabria, and Avalo, sorry, the one that played yesterday. They've not impressed. And that was a risk going into Fed. I'll go to you first on this one. It was a risk to take four strikers instead of having some balance in that midfield, but you kind of feeling regretful of that. But those are the players that I thought were good and bad. I think there's been other players that I've enjoyed. Mauricio not playing as many as he should. That's kind of the thing, and I'm sure it's probably going to be a talking point before the Germany game if it is going to be them. But who has impressed you and who has not impressed you at this World Cup for Paraguay?
Well, I'm actually surprised you're mentioning so many of the attackers. We barely attacked during this World Cup. We barely been able to see, especially the center forwards, right? I mean, we've seen all four of them, but they barely had any opportunities in the box. So I'm not going to mention them. Every player has a different task in the field from Alfaro to stop a certain player from the other team. So I'm thinking, I think it's been the balance of this team that has been the most important factor. So for me, in the number one spot, the most important player in this team during the group stage was Andres Cubas. Him being back on the starting team, we didn't have him doing the friendlies. We didn't know if he was just going to show up and do his thing, and he has. He has recovered so many balls. He's been pretty much everywhere. You look at his map, and damn, that guy just doesn't run out of fuel, man. He's really all over that pitch, and he's one of those guys that I want more of the players that are around him to just do exactly what he's doing, right? I mean, just pick up the ball and do the right pass. And that's where we're having problems, not being able to have the ball. And that's where I thought Diego Gomez, Damian Bobadilla, that midfield was going to be key. And Damian, unfortunately, had that first game with that own goal. And they took him out of the game. They took him out of the team, and he didn't come back as a starter in these last two matches. So because Galarza is the other one that I was going to mention. Galarza is the one that came into that midfield, and he was really a solution. They even used him on the side on this last game against Australia. So he's been a tactical player also for Alfaro, solving issues on this team. So I got to put Galarza in there. And Third spot, I'm gonna put Mauricio, guys. He's really surprised me. He really showed his potential. He's shown that he loves his team, that he can do something for Paraguay, and I'm a Mauricio believer right now. You know, I'm thinking that he's one of the guys that I want in my team. I want him to have the ball on his feet. I want him to hook up with Julio and Ciso. We haven't seen them link up that much. We haven't seen him with Almiron either, which is another player that I thought could have stood out. But those are my top three guys, and maybe a special mention to Orlando Hill. I mean, as the games went by, this last game was probably his best match. So he's definitely getting accustomed to being the Paraguayan goalkeeper. So those are my top four players of the group stage.
Yeah, well, the note on Hill, I agree that he's got better, right, as the games have gone on. And you just feel like I wish he played against Nicaragua. It just seems so strange, that decision now that he played some friendlies, gets taken out, gets put back in. But we're off Alfaro now, so I'll go on to the players, right? Yeah, I mean, for me, Julian Ciso, as he's not been able to do it consistently, but he's been for me, wow, the one player that has been able to relieve a bit of pressure through carrying the ball, which is what he does best, right? And there's times where he's frustrating because he runs the ball into trouble, but that's kind of that's what's the word, like it's like the risk reward you get with him, because you have to have him try those things because no one else can do it. So I mean, I'm okay with putting in CISO in my podium, because I think he's been that one like person that can do something different, but still not incisive enough for me, right? I mean, I know he gets the assist for the Galasa goal, but that's that's the easiest assist he ever got, because that's all on Galasa with the strike. And then for me, second place is probably, or on the podium as well, is probably Galasa as well. I've really enjoyed how he put behind all the problems he's having at club level, right? Because he's not doing well with his club. He's having difficulties. Atlanta's playing really badly. I mean, he's not going to continue at River. So there's all that stuff going on. But for Paraguay, he's been excellent. And we've seen that in several occasions. Like he scored that goal against Peru, I remember, in the qualifiers at the end. He was also coming in to the team a bit under criticism, and he just responds and plays well. And he might end up being the key player they're going to have to use against Germany because of Gomez being suspended, because he's maybe the only one that can do some of that pressing. Like Fede was talking about, he did it on the left. Well, someone's going to have to press Kimmich, who's playing almost right back now, and but all the build up through him. So maybe it ends up being Galassi. He could end up having this role. And then I don't know. I want to give a shout out to Gustavo Gomez, because that game against Turkey, Gustavo Gomez, I mean, did everything. I mean, got rid of everything, blocked everything. And that was the game where the captain's role was so important, because remember, he did not play Copa America. He had that whole falling out. He didn't play a single game. Paraguay mentality was awful. He comes back in with Alfaro. The qualifiers, we start to see some of that old mentality, and it can't just be a coincidence, right? I think Gustavo Gomez does so much as a leader, and then he put in that performance against Turkey where, yeah, it was you. You just had he had to block everything. I think Paraguay blocked like 9 shots in that game. That's very rare to block 9 shots in a game. And I saw the clearances between him, Alderete, and Cáceres in that game were like 26. It was just incredible numbers. And so I put Gomez in because he's also going to be the player that will need such a big game if we're going to do anything against Germany. And it all starts with him at the back, kind of leading that side.
So if you have to pick one, I guess, your best player and your worst player, who do you got? My best player, I think I'm gonna say Andres Cubas, and my worst player so far, Diego Gomez. Fede, best player and worst player, just one.
Well, because he was the starter that first game, and I was expecting him to move on, being a starter in this team. I'm gonna go with Damian Bobadilla. Unfortunately, his mistake, it cost him the spot, and he didn't get it back. So I'm gonna unfortunately point fingers at him because somebody made a mistake. I could have done the same thing with Almiron, right? Because I'm expecting for these guys not to make those mistakes. It's World Cup. I mean, you got to play perfectly out there, and Underperforming, yeah. I'm there with Damian Bobadilla, with Tony Sanabria, but yeah, I wasn't expecting much from Tony, so I'm gonna put Damian Bobadilla there as the player that I didn't like, especially in that first game. And the player, yeah, the one that has me rooting for him, and every time he catches the ball back, it's Andres Cubas, guys. I mean, he's the one, el motorcito, the heart of this team. He's the little engine of this team, and if he's working, if he's doing his thing, at least we get the ball back, and at least we fight, and that's what I want to see, right? The Garra Guarani, that team that fights every single ball, and I want to see that from everybody. I just mentioned that, so for me, it's Andres Cubas, guys. I mean, he was our best player during the qualifiers, and he's doing the same thing in the World Cup.
Ralph?
I think the most disappointing, yeah, is also between Boadilla and Sanabria. Boadilla, not so much just the own goal. The problem about the own goal is it's him who let McKennie go past him at the beginning of that whole move. If you go back and he's like trying to recover. So it's not just that he scored the own goal, it's like he was at fault. And he looked really out of depth in that whole game. I think maybe Sanabria for me, because Sanabria, just like you haven't played that many minutes this year, so you're not tired. You can't complain of tiredness. And he just didn't show the body language, the effort in that game against the US. It was like light and day when Peter came in, and Peter, runs his heart out and doesn't maybe have the same skill level or talent as Sanabria, but it would just gave Paraguay like a different aspect in terms of how they were approaching the game. So I think for me, Sanabria has been the most disappointing. And then yeah, I mean, Kouras is he's an obvious choice. I don't know. I'm going to go with the Galasa though, because I've really liked Galasa, the fact that he was criticized so much before that game, just kind of unfairly, that he was emotionally had problems or something. And there's always that thing about, I think he's 23, right? He's quite young still. And just to come in and then do the performance he did, and then yesterday be used in a different position and still be able to give something to the team. I've really liked Galasa, so I hope he starts against Germany.
And I guess we'll go into that because obviously, due to the simulations, we still have to wait and see officially. But if results go the way that they should, up until basically the end of tomorrow, basically, Paraguay will be taking on Germany in Foxborough in Boston Stadium, as they call it. We can't call it Gillette Stadium because of sponsorship, but we'll say it here. We'll say Gillette Stadium. We're not going to be sued by FIFA, but nevertheless, they will be taking on Germany, a Germany team that was coming off a really tough group with Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador. If you remember in that group, obviously we saw, like we mentioned at the beginning, Ralph, they got conceded early on to Curacao. It was actually 1-1 at one point, but then it was just all guns blazing from them. And mind you, this was a Germany team that was coming off not winning, not getting out of their group in the last two World Cups, and that with the expanded format, they were able to do it. Obviously, it's funny, world champions and then not going out of their group in the last two, and then obviously now they are out. But it wasn't easy. It was, heading into the second game, it was a sluggish game. Ivory Coast actually took the lead over there against Germany in Toronto, but then it was Dennis Undav who scored twice and the goal in stoppage time for them to do it. It feels like, everyone has their kind of jokes, Ancelotti's not playing, what's his name, Endrick. I guess Alfaro's not playing as much Mauricio. Well, we have our equivalent in Germany in that Dennis Undav is not being played by Julian Nagelsmann, and he only came in, I think, the 60th minute. Germany took the lead against Ecuador early on, and then Ecuador go on into winning a really good turnaround. So what I'm saying is it is a very inconsistent Germany team. I'm not saying that they are this big, fearful team that everyone has to go for with France or Brazil or whatever, Argentina, but they are still a very strong team. Having said that, I'll go to Ralph first on this one. How do you see Germany and I guess how do Paraguay set up in this game, especially now that they're not going to be without Diego Gomez? They will get what's his name, Miguel Miron back. We'll have to see if even Ramon Sosa finally hits the pitch because he has not hit the pitch so far at this World Cup due to fitness. But yeah, what do you see from this game basically now? We've seen how Paraguay has always been defensive in those games against the Europeans. Obviously, there is some history, 2002 famous game in Korea, South Korea, where they knocked us out in the last minute. Now we get a rematch 24 years later, but we've seen Paraguay get those gritty games in the knockout stage against big European sides or Japan. But is it gonna be deja vu again, or do we have to be a bit more pragmatic from at least what you've seen from Germany?
Yeah, well, firstly from Germany, I mean, yeah, there's a big difference between. when they finished the game against Curacao, I was like, oof, okay, Germany's here. They're taking no prisoners. And then even against Ecuador, they had a pretty strong team out. So you were like, wow, this is Germany's serious. And they lost the game against Ecuador. I mean, honestly, like if there was something riding on it, then I don't know if Germany would have lost or the game would have gone the way it did. So we should take that with a pinch of salt. But the game I really was interested by was Ivory Coast because they did struggle a bit in that match. They needed Undav to come off the bench. The big struggle for Germany has been defensively, right? Because Neuer, there's question marks over him, probably because of the age. So very different to 2002, when, by the way, their best player was their goalkeeper, as Oliver Kahn, right? So very different situation there. And also they've got the injury to Schlotterbeck, so Rudiger's come in again, a bit on the older side. So there's a bit there, and then there's the debates I think about going forward, right? And it's should he start with Havertz or should he start with the guy that actually scores more goals, which is Undav. So they have those question marks. I mean, the big thing and then there was always a question mark, I think, for a lot of people over Leroy Sané because people are surprised maybe that he plays. But if you look at Nagelsmann by Munich, he was like a key player for
He
him.
trusted his guys. I think that was
Oh
always.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, Nagelsmann's like, I'm going to use the people I know. Kimmich is not able to play central midfield for me, so I put him at right back and build up through him anyway. It's quite interesting how the team is shaped. Maybe the good thing is they're not one of those overly fast teams. Like if we were going to play France or Brazil right now, I'd be more concerned, I think, especially Brazil. Vinicius he'd be looking out for revenge, I think, from that defeat when he wasn't able to score. So Germany, I think the way they build up and the way they play maybe gives Paraguay a bit more of a breather than if they were having to go against one of those really fast, really transition teams. But the big question mark is Germany have some issues defensively, but we have nothing going forward attacking wise. So how are we going to make a
What a
difference?
test, man. What a
Yeah.
great test. We have the good defense. They don't have the good defense. They have the good attack, and we don't have the good attack. Imagine
Yeah,
that.
I mean it's everything gears up to play for a 0-0 and try and snatch a goal. And instead of it being Oliver Neuville in the last minute, hopefully it can be Gabriel Avalos in the last minute for us. I mean, everything sets up that it will be that way. For it to work for Paraguay is they're going to have to do something with Kimmich because everything goes through him, and then of course Musiala, right? So that's you can see the Cubas Musiala battle, and you hope Cubas maybe Thomas Muller will be giving Musiala some tips, though, which is an issue. Um, and then yeah, it's who do we end up like really pressing up that side because Almiron will be back, but when he played on the left against the US, he just wasn't as effective defensively, like off the ball, compared to when he was on the right against Turkey, because he was actually playing very well until he got sent off, which was playing very well off the ball, like just thinking about not having possession. So that's going to be those two big questions, and I don't know. I don't know about you guys. I cannot see Paraguay scoring twice. So the question would be, can they hold out long enough and snatch a goal or snatch an equalizer? That's going to be my big kind of feeling about this game.
Do you trust them on penalties?
Oh yeah, always trust Paraguay on penalties.
Fede, how do you see this one?
Well, I was just writing names that Ralph was just throwing out there. I mean, we got to worry about so much about Germany. I mean, he mentioned about 8, 9 names around there that could give us a headache, and yeah, it's gonna be another stressful one. We're gonna have that defensive setup. Hopefully, we can counterattack a bit better. I mean, unfortunately, Alfaro took Ramon Sosa. That's not 100%. Unfortunately, he took Gustavo Caballero, who also hasn't been available, even though he did say against Australia he was ready to go, but he just didn't fit in the game. He could have used them already, but we needed those fast players, guys, and they weren't up for it during the group stage. So hopefully, heading into this next game, we have them available. We have everybody available again, and I don't know. I'm just hoping for a hero to show up, right? I mean, I talked about the group stage and our stars not making the difference. No Diego Gomez in footprint in these games. Some Julio Enciso highlights, but barely getting opportunities at goal where he can make the difference. So I'm hoping for those guys to step up, and I'm hoping for an Almiron to come in this game, totally obsessed with doing something in this World Cup. I mean, being mad at himself from what happened against Turkey and flipping it around, having a great game against a team like Germany. And this World Cup needs a surprise. This World Cup needs a shocker. And if Paraguay beats Germany, it's going to shock the world. No doubt about it, even if it's in penalty. So why not be us? Why not be our day? Let's get it, guys. I know we talked about a lot about the bad side of this team, about what we didn't like. I know there's a lot of issues, but a new World Cup starts now. It's one against one, and it's knockout stage. And if you beat Germany, oh, if we beat Germany, if we can get through Germany, nobody can stop us then.
I don't know if it was you, Ralph, or someone saying that like the format basically means you don't have to lose all your games and you could basically go to the final. It's a hard ask, of course. That is one of the hardest asks to go for. Um, but if you sit back for 120 minutes and then whatever happens on penalty too, I'm not saying it's the best way. It's very hard to do that. But Fede has a point on that end. I mean, there are surprises at the World Cup, and you mentioned like there is a Germany team that are vulnerable. We've seen that, and I think also Paraguay tends to raise. I mean, we saw that France 98, Germany 02, even though they lost, Spain 2010. And we even with Turkey as well. These guys know what it's like to raise their stakes against the Europeans. It's always against the teams outside of it that kind of are a bit more difficult to go through. But they raise the stakes against the Europeans. And I think that's always what made Paraguay such a formidable team from the entire world. And I'm sure a lot of the people outside of Germany, of course, are going to be supporting us in this game. But, history is always it always repeats itself as well. And I think it's also a time for them to use that history for them, but also against it because, like you said, they've never won a knockout stage game. But hey, if they're ever going to get a big one, obviously in regulation or an extra time, why not be this one?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to point out is the game is in Foxborough, right? So Germany struggled in the MetLife. That was where they lost to Ecuador. I think they played Houston's under the roof. Toronto, I don't know what the
I
weather
think it's
was in
grass as
Toronto.
well. Yeah, this is a whole different format as well.
Yeah, so and also what I'm really curious to see is do we get a lot of Paraguayans at the game or not? Because I kind of feel like everyone just spent their money flying out to California because most Paraguayans, of course, live on the East Coast. Will there be enough on Monday to like buy
They'll
tickets?
find a way. They will find. Listen, we've been surprised of the amount that we've sung. I mean, I'm going to be fortunate to go there. You know, at this point, the World Cup happening nearby. There's a huge contingent of Paraguayan Americans that live in this country. I'm sure you saw the banderazo as well that came back. The only issue it is a Monday. It is an afternoons, so it is during the workday as opposed to what we saw yesterday or in the other games that were on a Friday. That might factor in, but it's the World Cup, man. Fede, I
Yeah,
mean,
well
that's
that well
simple
that's
as
what I'm
that.
hoping. I'm hoping to see lots of people there at the game. Paraguayans, that's what I mean. Germany will have plenty of fans as well, as you can imagine. There's lots of Germans that live here in the US. But I'm hoping we get a great atmosphere. Maybe a weather delay in there as well. You never know.
It's gonna
Like
be sunny. I checked the weather
oh
already. It's
no,
gonna be Sunday, 4:30. It's gonna be hot though. Maybe that factors in. Who knows?
I could help Paraguay, you never know, yeah.
Go Fede. What were you saying?
No, and there's so many Germans that live in Paraguay. I mean, there's a whole history of Paraguay and Germany being linked up. I mean, you go out here in Asunción and you find German stores. I mean, it's crazy, right? So there is that link between each country. So it's gonna be a special rivalry, a special preview also here in Asunción. I'm gonna love it if it's finally Germany, a powerhouse, one of the big teams. They're going to win it. We're going to try to shock the world.
I think that's the beauty of the World Cup to go in it. But that being said, let's see. We're gonna close this out with one more thing, and I'll start with you, Ralph. What do you see happening? If this is the game, which is now 99%, if we have to change it, we'll edit it out, whatever. That's a whole different story. But if we do get Paraguay, Germany on Monday in Foxborough, how do you see this going?
I think, unfortunately, it's going to be 1-0 to Germany. And it's going to be very similar to 2002, probably late in the second half, probably Undav coming off the bench and scoring. So, unfortunately, uh, my heart says otherwise, but my head says 1-0
But there is
Germany.
a chance. There is a chance that
There's
Paraguay can
always a
do
chance.
it. Fede?
It's not impossible because it is football, but Yeah, I'm with Ralph. I mean, if I have to put my money on it, it's Germany by at least one or even two goals. But I'm hoping for a better strategy from Alfaro. I'm hoping for this team to get together. I'm hoping to see that will that I saw against Turkey and fight every single ball to the last one. And hopefully none of those go in. And hopefully we can take this game to penalties or score late on them. Have our few opportunities and get a goal there. And hopefully we can shock the world and be on every world newspaper on the next day because we took out one of the big teams of this World Cup. That's what I want. But being realistic, guys, after what I saw in this group stage, the big teams are making a big difference against the smaller teams. And as of right now, we are looked upon one of the small teams. People are already erasing us from this World Cup. I'm not doing it yet, but it would be the logical.
Sometimes when we have that lack of hope is when we rise up. We've seen that even in the Turkey game where they were able to rise up. Did we get a miracle in Foxborough? No, I agree. I agree with all of you. I think unfortunately Paraguay's World Cup will end in this game. I also agree with Ralph. I think it's going to be one of those really tight affairs, 1-0 to Germany. I'll say early on, actually, that Germany score very early, but and they're trying to score and they don't, and but Paraguay just are unable to do so as well. So I would love for a shock. I also don't see it. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to see what occurs. Hopefully after this, if we have to react to them winning, we'll do it. But if not, we're gonna have to do a recap of what we saw in that. But before we let you go, guys, I guess our last thing, because we are, of course, a soccer football show. We love the sport. Who's gonna win the World Cup? Ralph. I mean, you are an Englishman, so they are one of the contenders, and obviously we saw them compete already. We'll have to wait and see what happens in their last game against Panama, but put you on the spot with a couple weeks before the end of the final. Who's going to win the World Cup?
Well, so I'm doing a prediction game with my friends about back in Paraguay actually, and I predicted Germany. So let's hope that's
Oh,
wrong.
oh wow.
If I can knock them out. Although after the group stage, I don't think I'd still go with Germany. I still don't think France will do it. I feel France will run out of steam. So I'm thinking maybe Brazil is going to surprise everyone.
Interesting. And I mean, surprise, like they're most successful team, but I agree. I also said think Brazil. I'm going to stick with my team. I think I picked Brazil to beat France in the final. Actually, that was my final when I did my prediction, and I will stick with I think with Spain, Argentina semifinals. But Fede, after what you've seen, who do you got winning the World Cup?
Can we have the same final that we had in the last World Cup?
Of course. Why wouldn't we?
It could happen. It could
Yeah,
happen, right? I mean,
absolutely.
France,
Yes.
Argentina, they've probably been the two most exciting teams. They're the teams that I've enjoyed the most to watch during the group stage. I mean, Argentina with the Messi effect and everything that he's brought in these first couple of games. And then there are certain teams that look like they're sleeping during the group stage, and they're going to catch on fire, or they could catch on fire during the knockout stage. And there you got Germany, you got Portugal, you got several teams that I look at their path, and I'm thinking to myself, they can surprise everybody and make it to the final. But as of right now, after what I saw in the group stage, I think Argentina have the best player in this tournament, and and France has the options. They have alternatives. They just have so many different options to find solutions in games. So those I believe are my two candidates. Again, it usually doesn't happen, right? I mean, World Cups usually you have new world champions and new finals. But after the group stage, I gotta say Argentina looks really strong, which I'm happy for because I want a South American team to make it far. I want Ecuador, Colombia to also make it far. I think they have the potential. But no, the way I see it, those are the two teams that are playing the best football in this World Cup,
So we're picking
Argentina
all
and France.
we're all picking all South Americans to win the World Cup. Hey, if Paraguay do it, then that's a different story. But at least we're sticking on the South American connection. So no, I'm really glad that we were able to do this. Obviously, like, subscribe. Thank you everyone who has been obviously supporting us during this entire group stage. It's been really great to see, and hopefully we can continue on, after this World Cup and further on because there's more things going on in the world of football in Paraguay. So thank you so much for everyone listening in as we close out another great episode for Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hanna, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.